After my father brought Jiang Qi home, I began to be abandoned by the whole world. She took my room and stole my fiancé, and she won the favor of the entire family. Later, I died in a car accident while trying to save my family. They were probably afraid that Jiang Qi would feel guilty, so they never mentioned it to me. When I opened my eyes again, I had returned to the year I was 15. Jiang Qi was pitifully kowtowing to me. I lifted her face. You really enjoy kneeling, don't you? Keep bowing. When the car accident happened, Jiang Qi abandoned us and stumbled away. I dragged my injured leg to rescue my family. Collapsing, exhausted by the car, Gussie walked past me. I reached out my hand to him. Brother, pull me. Give me a hand. He was anxious to check if Jiang Qi was okay and impatiently shook off my hand. My family gathered around Jiang Qi, celebrating their narrow escape. No one noticed the flames gradually rising. I never knew before that the sound of an explosion could be so loud. After Jiang Qi was adopted and brought home, I finally lost the last thing I had. Life. Gulen, I'm talking to you later. When Dad brings that woman home, you're not allowed to be nice to her. Understand, our family only has 3 children. The heavy snow and flames vanished. Before me stood 15-year-old Guo, his eyes brimming with defiance. This was the day Jiang Qi came to my home. I can't believe I'm back. Jiang Qi is the child of my father's friend after an accident left her orphaned. He took her in and raised her as his own daughter. He just raised her too well, so that all my brothers ended up siding with her. Watching my own daughter die in the winter, Guo still looked at me impatiently. He and I are the closest fraternal twins in our past life. He often spoke harshly to me because of Jiang Qi. I still remember him throwing the gift I gave into the trash, clumsily trying to comfort Jiang Qi. Sis, you're the only sister I have. What is she to me? Don't be sad. From now on, I'll only let you celebrate my birthday with me. That face, once so careful and comforting. Jiang Qi now tells me not to be polite with her. That's really interesting. Going downstairs, I saw my mom. She was waiting for Dad and Jiang Qi to come back. Gussie is still at the company. Now the whole family is gathered just to welcome Jiang Qi. What a grand occasion. The sound of a car engine echoed from outside the door. Soon Dad came in holding the hand of a thin, pale girl. Jiang Qi was just as slender and delicate as in her previous life. Like a frightened bird, she nestled close to her father. Upon seeing me, her expression turned panicked, as if she were afraid. She took a few large strides toward me and knelt down with a thud. It really is exactly the same as in the previous life. Clothes deliberately patched, hot tears rolling down from the eyes. It was this very act that convinced everyone in the family that I was malicious and willful. I fell short of her in every way, yet clearly I had done nothing at all. Jiang Qi knelt down in front of me and began to kowtow without a word. In my previous life, seeing her like this, I hurriedly stepped forward to help her up. But now I sneered, pulled over a chair, and sat down. Lon. Father called my name with dissatisfaction. How strange. It was clearly the adopted daughter who inexplicably started kowtowing. Yet he was dissatisfied with me. How could I not have noticed that Father had been so partial to Jiang Qi from the very beginning? Seeing that I didn't respond, Jiang Qi bit her lip and continued kowtowing in silence. The banging sounds echoed through the living room, sounding like celestial music to my ears. I casually picked at my ear, curious to see how long she could keep up the act. Back when she took everything from me, Jiang Qi had proudly boasted, I knew all along that Uncle Gu would go to the orphanage that day to find a child. I never wanted to be some poor student. I wanted to be a true, noble daughter. This person has always wanted to replace me. He's still too young. After all, before she could even count how a few times, Jiang Qi couldn't hold back her tears and started crying. Lon, I know you're unhappy that Uncle brought me back, but I don't want to take your place. Uncle just feels sorry for me. Please don't be angry. I haven't done anything yet, and I'm already being blamed. Sure enough, as soon as my parents heard, They both looked at me with dissatisfaction. Even Guo, who had just said he disliked her, was looking at her with pity in his eyes. Suddenly, I became the one who couldn't tolerate others. I lifted Jiang Kai's face with my foot. Looking down at her, she shrank back, not daring to meet my gaze, like a harmless little white flower. But I knew she was a venomous snake lying in wait, coveting everything the Gu family had. I said calmly, "If you like it so much, then keep on kowtowing." My father stared at me with a displeased expression. Gussie also looked disapproving. They all thought I was deliberately making things difficult, for Jiang Qi, the Qing dynasty, fell long ago. So don't kneel before everyone you see. If you don't change this habit, people will think our Gu family has mistreated you. Upon hearing this, my father looked stunned. He glanced at me and Jiang Qi in the end. He said nothing and took the sobbing Jiang Qi away. Mother and Gussie followed, closely behind. They surrounded Jiang Qi in a circle. I was left alone in the living room. That's exactly how it was in my past life. Clearly, I am the only daughter in the family, but as soon as Jiang Qi arrived, it was as if they were under a spell. They spoiled the adopted daughter to no end. Jiang Qi settled into my home, just like in her previous life. Her parents arranged a guest room for her. She shed tears of gratitude and thanked her parents over and over again. She said she had never lived in such a nice house, which made them hold her in their arms with pity, exactly the same as in her previous life. I am clearly a member of the Gu family, yet I am always kept at a distance like a stray dog, watching helplessly as they love and care for each other. I know that once Jiang Qi wins over the family, she will move into my room, take away my friends, and fall in love with my childhood sweetheart. Until she takes everything from me, I must figure out why Jiang Qi is so beloved by everyone. Gussie and Gu Yao are their biological sons, so it's only natural for our parents to do on them. But Jiang Qi is just an adopted daughter. Why does she receive better treatment than I do? Before I could even figure it out, Jiang Qi had already resorted to her usual tricks. She would wake up early to prepare breakfast for the family, make late-night snacks for Gussie and Guyao, and accompany her mother's shopping for clothes. Their relationship grew increasingly close. I watched all of this, feeling completely unmoved inside. The flames of my past life were too painful, burning away my last hope for this family. I should understand that the Gu family might be Jiang Ning's home, but it is not mine. Jiang Qi began to subtly target me. In the morning, she would make breakfast for everyone except me. On weekends, she invited each family member to the equestrian field one by one, deliberately leaving me out. Whenever I point out, I get disapproving looks from my family. They say I lack tolerance and that I'm being willful and petty. Meanwhile, Jiang Qi will shed tears of grievance, saying she was too careless and left her sister behind. My family grows increasingly dissatisfied with me. Every step she took was driving a wedge between me and my family. She spread venom everywhere I passed, and anyone who touched it would either die or be severely injured. It's a pity, but in this life, I plan to stay away from the Gu family. All of Jiang Qi's schemes are irrelevant to me. Such a cold and indifferent family. If she wants it, just give it to her. Jiang Qi went to the equestrian field as usual without calling me. That's exactly how it was in my previous life, and I was completely unaware. As soon as I got home, I ran into Gussie and Guyao. They took turns questioning me, asking why I was isolating Jiang Qi and ignoring her invitations. I didn't even have a chance to explain. Jiang Qi had already come out, crying, and called them away. In this life, Jiang Qi has already set the stage for me. If I don't go, how can her play be performed? Carrying my favorite riding crop, I leisurely made my way to the riding ground. Sure enough, Jiang Qi was riding my horse, cautiously circling around under Gu Yao's watchful eye. She would occasionally pretend to be scared and shrink into Gu Yao's arms. This made Gu Yao blush with embarrassment. Not far away, Gussie watched the two with a smile. Yet, He frowned with dissatisfaction when they embraced. I curled the corner of my lips, watching the three of them with interest. Gussie, a renowned young talent in the capital, has fallen in love with his 8-year younger adopted sister. I wonder if this news is explosive enough. I watch as Gussie can hardly hold back from pulling the two apart. I walked over, seeing me approach. Jiang Qi fearfully hunched her shoulders and hid in Gu Yao's embrace. She timidly peeked out and stammered an apology. Sister, it's because I've never seen the world and don't understand equestrianism that the brothers came to accompany me. Please don't be angry. I waved the whip in my hand and asked casually, Is that so? How was the ride on my horse? Jiang Qi was so frightened that her face turned pale. She looked fragile and on the verge of collapse. Seeing this, Gue stood in front of her. I was the one who asked her to try this horse. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Stop bullying her. I sneered at my twin brother. Oh, did she say this one is the gentlest and most beautiful, intentionally not inviting me? How can I not blame her? What, when she first arrived, you said she was nothing, and now you're defending her. My gaze fell on Jiang Qi, and I continued with a half smile. It seems that Sister Jiang Kai's methods are quite clever. Watching Jiang Kai's expression turned hurt. On the verge of tears, Gu Yao, with a fierce look on his face, was about to argue with me. He was stopped by Gussie. All right, Gulen, Jiang Qi just arrived home, so it's natural if there are some oversights. Don't be so petty. Be more understanding. Okay, be more sensible. I sneered. In my past life, it was precisely because I was too sensible that Jiang Qi took everything from me, ending up with a tragic death. This time, I won't make the same mistake again. What do you like her to? I stared at Jiang Qi. Jiang Qi is quite charming, isn't she? She's got you all so bewitched that you're defending her like crazy. If I didn't know better, I'd think she was Dad's illegitimate daughter. Jiang Qi choked back tears as they rolled down her cheeks. It was me who rode your horse, and it was me who forgot to call you. Punish me. I'll accept it all, but I am not an illegitimate child. You cannot insult me. Ganji cried as if she were about to faint in Gu Yao's arms. Gussie looked at her with heartache. He turned his head and coldly shouted at me, Gulen, that's too much. Jiang Qi huddled in Gu Yao's arms, crying while secretly glancing at Gus' reaction. If I don't do something, how can I live up to Jiang Kai's performance? Isn't she just trying to drive a wedge between me and the two of them as she wished? Whack! The sound of the whip cutting through the air and Jiang Kai's scream appeared almost simultaneously. This time, I used all my strength and my wrist was faintly numb. Gulen, you're really crazy. You're so vicious. Gua stood in front of Jiang Qi, shouting at me. Jiang Qi screamed and covered her face. She didn't even bother pretending to be a delicate flower anymore. Hiding in Gu Yao's arms and glaring at me with venom, she treasures her delicate face the most. And now she probably wishes she could kill me. I secretly sighed in regret. I didn't have time to slap her a few more times. I spoke slowly, staring at Jiang Qi with a cold smile. You said you'd accept any punishment. Then let's see what happens when you take what's mine in this life. She had just returned home when I gave her such a beating. Let me see what my dear family can do for Jiang Qi back at home. Jiang Qi saw herself in the mirror and fainted weakly. Gua hurried to call the family doctor. Gussie stared at me with dissatisfaction. Gulen, when did you become so unreasonable? She just rode your horse. It was the same in my previous life. I had thought that the usually steady Gussie would take my side. After graduating from high school, I saw Jiang Qi enter Gussie's room. How interesting. The little sister has become the wife. My dear brother really went through with it. Who says that? Besides riding my horse, she also managed to win over my brothers, making them all side with her. I just want her to know that a rat in the sewer is still a rat. If she dares to steal what's mine, this is what she gets. Watching Yung Qi's trembling eyelids on the sofa, I smiled with ill intent. When my father returned, he flew into a rage. and even my mother shed tears of heartache. My father's eyes turned red with fury. Bring me the whip. I only rode her horse. Is that worth whipping someone? If she likes whipping so much, I'll let her have her fill. Jiang Qi lay crooked on the sick bed, looking at her father, just revealing her injured face. Her father grew even angrier. Gussie and Guo stood to the side, coldly waiting for her to be punished. They gathered around Jiang Qi like heroes seeking justice for their own family. Father's horsehip was already in his hand. His eyes were bloodshot like a beast that had emerged from nowhere, ready to devour anyone in its path. I stood in place, staring straight at them. Fine. If you lay a finger on me, I'll call the police right away. Let everyone see how you hate your own daughter for the sake of your adopted child. Just make sure she isn't actually your illegitimate daughter instead. I stared into my father's eyes, watching for his reaction. Hearing the term illegitimate daughter, my mother froze, her hands stopping midair, and she stared uncertainly at my father. And Jiang Qi, how dare you defy me? You even dare to slander your own father. Get out. Get upstairs. I watched as he pointed at me for a long time, but the whip still didn't land on me with a cold sneer. I walked out with a face full of disdain. My father's family background was slightly inferior back then. It was my mother who saved him with her dowry when the company faced a crisis. My mother loved him to death. She willingly coaxed my father, allowing him to freeload shamelessly. My father is someone who values his pride above all else, even if it hurts Jangi. Hitting your own daughter for the sake of a newly adopted daughter is something that would make anyone lose face. But I just observed carefully, and although he was angry, he didn't seem guilty. After several attempts to probe, Jiang Qi probably isn't his illegitimate daughter. So what's her background? The next day, as soon as I stepped out of my room, I saw Jiang Qi standing at my door in a hospital gown. Dad told me to stay in your room, saying, "You're too stubborn and need to learn a lesson." I crossed my arms and looked her up and down. What? You're not going to keep up the act now that no one's watching. Jiang Qi's expression gradually twisted into a grimace, making the swollen blood stains on her face appear even more hideous and terrifying. Happy? Of course. I'm happy. I don't just want your room. I want your family, your position. I wish I could take your life. That's more like it. This was the real Jiang Qi, young in age, but full of schemes. It must have been hard for her to pretend for so long in my family in her previous life. All right, I'll be waiting for you. I'm really looking forward to seeing how far Jiang Qi and I can go, now that we've torn off the mask from the start. Gulen, you're bullying her again. Guo angrily pushed me aside, shielding Jiang Qi behind him. My dear brother, once again, you've already judged me without even seeing what happened. I watched as Jiang Qi smirked triumphantly at me from behind him. Which eye of yours saw me bullying her? If not you, then who? Last time you hit someone for no reason at all. Someone like you is capable of anything. Sister Jiang, hurry and leave. Stay away from her. Guo was as anxious as a protector, just like when he shielded me when we were kids. Guyao and I are fraternal twins, and we've always been the closest since childhood. Although Guo never calls me sister, we have always been by each other's side since childhood. When he was sick as a child, I acted like a little adult, feeding him medicine and water. When I was bullied by troublemakers, it was Guo who stood in front of me, swinging his small fists. We are the two closest people in the world. He once said, Gulen, you're so timid. What would you do without me in this lifetime? It has to be me protecting you. The young man's voice still lingers faintly in my ears. Now, as soon as Jiang Qi arrived, I immediately became the villainous, supporting female character. The closeness and protection he showed me in childhood, Guo has already cast aside. I looked at Guo and softly asked. She secretly rode my horse and deliberately didn't call me to the stables. Shouldn't she be punished? It's such a small matter. You already have everything. It was her first time at the stables. Is it really that serious? I have everything. I leaned close to Gua, my expression mocking. She's so pitiful, yet she went from being an orphan to a wealthy young lady. I am clearly the only daughter of the Gu family, yet I have gradually lost everything I had. My parents, my brothers, they all sided with her. Do you believe that my engagement to Zhu Xiao will also be cancelled because of Jiang Qi? I have everything. I'm clearly a poor wretch who will have everything taken away by Jiang Qi. Gua was stunned, unable to utter a single word. I pushed him away and walked out of the Gu family under his astonished gaze. Such a family is not worth keeping. I went to my maternal grandparents' house, clutching the recorded USB drive in my hand. Grandma held my hand, her heart aching so much that tears fell. Our Lan has been wronged among the 3 children. She has the best temper. She wouldn't have come to us for help unless she was pushed to the brink. Grandfather had stepped down from the group in recent years. In my previous life, after I fell out with my family, he was the only one who took me in. They loved me, their granddaughter, and even left me shares in the group, hoping only for my lifelong peace and happiness. Unfortunately, it was all ruined by Jiang Qiguang is being foolish, and even Qini is thoughtless. This adopted daughter is full of tricks, fooling them into neglecting their own biological daughter. Qini is my mother. Back then, she insisted on marrying my father against her family's wishes, completely love-struck. After marriage, because of my father's ridiculous pride, they rarely visited home and the 2 families were not in close contact. But in my previous life, when my parents abandoned me, it was my maternal and paternal grandparents who took me back home. My maternal grandfather taught me work experience, and my paternal grandmother would make red bean soup for me in the winter. They were the ones who truly cared for me as family. Lan, don't worry. I will definitely persuade your mother properly. No need. I don't require it. Grandfather, could you help me investigate what exactly Jiang Qi's background is? What is the relationship between the orphanage director and her mother? Look into her mother's side. As early as when I died by the car in my previous life, when I was rejected and humiliated, when I was abandoned time and again, I knew then that Gulen had no mother. My grandparents looked at me with pity and agreed. There's still over a year left before the college entrance exam, and I don't plan to waste any more time on that family from the moment I returned. I decided I wouldn't study finance, just to please the Gu family. I have my own dream school in mind. To achieve that, I must score high enough to completely break free from them and never have to see them again. Back at school, I saw my childhood friend Shu Shirao on the playground. He waved and smiled, beckoning me over. Gua said, "You ran away from home because of the adopted daughter your dad brought home." Zhu Xiao was sitting on the horizontal bar, with the top 2 buttons of his school uniform undone, looking like the dashing and handsome school heartthrob. Yes, Jiang Qi is very scheming. My dad was going to whip me because of her. Zhu Xiao frowned. For children from wealthy families like us, having illegitimate children is common, let alone adopted daughters. But to push one's own daughter to this extent for the sake of an adopted daughter is a bit too much. Those people are very good at pretending to be pitiful. Don't pay them any mind. I didn't comment, just quietly looked at him. What about you? Zhu Xiao, will you fall hopelessly in love with her, just like in your past life? Sister, I've come to apologize. Will you come home? Please. Jiang Qi suddenly appeared behind me, once again in that familiar, pitiful posture. Has your face healed? Here to bark like a dog again. I watched her with a sinister smile. Truly a lingering ghost. No, don't hit me. Sister, don't hit me. Jiang Qi held her head and pleaded loudly, crying with tears streaming down her face. A mocking expression spread across my face, starting to act again. This person could probably win an Oscar if they went into the entertainment industry. Zhu Xiao looked at her. His expression moved in exactly the same way as in the previous life. My heart sank, the ache spreading from my chest to my fingertips. I had to bite down hard to suppress the stinging in my eyes. It's always like this. Everyone around me ends up being drawn to Jiang Qi if that's the case. Then what's the point of me being reborn in this life? Helped Jiang Qi to her feet, and they gazed at each other under the setting sun, looking as beautiful as the male and female leads in a youth film. I clenched my hands and told myself, don't cry. You still have your maternal grandparents. You still have yourself. Gulen, don't cry. Suppressing the warmth welling up in my eyes, I turned and walked away. Gussie called me, saying that I had upset my mother and she was in a bad mood. I just found it laughable. Really, if she was in a bad mood, why did she never come to see me? My mother cares most about my father, then Guy and Gua. Now, even Jiang Qi probably ranks ahead of me. How could she possibly remember me? Gua did come to the class to find me. Gulen, have you had enough of this? The family is about to be turned upside down because of you. As long as you apologize to Jiang Qi, we will forgive you and you can come back home to live. At that time, I was still working on the test papers in my hands, with only 2 months left before the arts and sciences exams. I must advance from Class D to Class A within these few months. That's where the best teachers are. Are you even listening to me? Gulen, don't pretend to be dead. Do you think I want to come find you? I don't think that. It's only natural that you all revolve around Jiang Qi. Now get lost. I need to study. I just find his buzzing around annoying. Don't act tough. I know you're just jealous of her. Someone as malicious as you. What's the point of even trying to get into college? Slap. Unable to bear it any longer, I gave Gua a resounding slap across the face. The eyes of everyone in the class were drawn to us. Gulen, how dare you hit me? Gua shouted at me in disbelief. To prevent unauthorized copying of the document, look for the little tiger bot when searching for books. It's stable, reliable, and won't lead you astray. That's right. I tried talking nicely, but you just wouldn't listen. Your family can do whatever they want, but don't provoke me. Understand? My expression turned cold and stern. If you provoke me, I'll beat you, too. Do you believe me? I won't be going back to that house. Get lost. Perhaps the commotion caused by that slap was too loud. The Goof family hasn't reached out to me on their own in a long time. Just as well. It makes it easier for me to study and take exams, just like in her previous life. Zhu Xiao was drawn to Jiang Qi from the initial. Those people are always scheming. To the later, your sister has it tough, too. She's quite pitiful. Don't treat her like that. Now she even steps in front of me to stand up for her, saying, only you and her were in the equipment room. If she sprained her ankle, it wasn't you who pushed her. So did she fall on her own? What's wrong with you? Gulen, Xiaoyi has been speaking up for you all along. And now you're being so malicious. Being called malicious again. That phrase is all too familiar. It seems like every member of the Gu family has said it. How ridiculous. It's as if they never spent the past decade or so with me. The moment Yung Qi arrived, I inexplicably turned malicious. How do you know she didn't trip and fall on her own? I crossed my arms and asked Zhu Xiao with a leisurely tone, what if she tripped and then blamed it on me? Gua suddenly ran over, opening his mouth only to blame me again. Don't assume everyone is as malicious as you who would intentionally hurt themselves just to frame you. What a pair of flower-protecting dogs. Zhu X Xiao, I'm quite curious. Why do you trust Jiang Qi so much? We've known each other for over a decade. Don't you know my character? If I had done it, she would have been beaten half to death by now. How could she have gotten off with just a sprained ankle? Gua looked stunned upon hearing this, while Zhu Xiao's face was filled with anger. Brotheroo, are you two engaged? Jiang Qi choked up as she looked at Zhu Xiao. Zhu Xiao couldn't quite bring himself to meet Jiang's gaze. The engagement was arranged by their families, and he didn't dare to easily go back on it. But I dare. Don't worry. Didn't you get close to Zhu Xiao in the first place because he had a marriage contract with me? What are you pretending for? As you wish. Zhu Xiao, our engagement is off. Don't contact me again in the future. Facing Zhu Xiao's astonished expression, I stared, Jiang's faint, teary eyes, and spoke word by word. Let me see. Jiang Qi, let me see what other tricks you have up your sleeve and how far you can go. Zhu Xiao helped Jiang Qi walk away. Bua looked at me with an unreadable expression. Are you really not planning to go home anymore? That's right. I'm not planning to come back from the moment the flames engulfed everything in my previous life. I should have had no home. Guo, do you believe me? I didn't push her. I told you when I left home. I'm not the one who has everything. I'm just the poor wretch who had everything taken away by Jiang Qi Gulan. You see, after you and Gui, even Zhu Xiao was taken away. I'm gradually losing everything. You must be happy about that. Right. I smiled self-deprecatingly, no longer paying attention to Guo, and turned to leave. The annulment of the marriage contract between the Zhu family and Gulan caused a huge uproar at school. It was rumored from somewhere that I had bullied Jiang Qi in the equipment room, and Zhu X Sha couldn't stand it anymore, which led to the cancellation of our engagement. They were trying to pin the blame on me. I directly released the video I had recorded in the equipment room that day from the first day of my rebirth. I was fully prepared for Jiang Qi. She bumped into the equipment, fell to the ground, and then covered her head, crying as she lay there. Then Zhu X Xiao came over without asking for an explanation and accused me along with my dear brother of pushing Jiang Qi. This completely sealed the matter. Rumors began to backfire. After all, since I returned to school, I had been burying myself in books, and everyone had witnessed how I directly tested into the science of class during the arts and sciences division. And Jiang Qi was always at the center of the storm. The young ladies raised in wealthy families could smell something fishy from a mile away. Even the reputation of the Gu family began to suffer. Upon hearing this, my father called me. Are you only happy when the Gu family becomes the laughingstock of the whole city? Get back here and apologize to Zhu Xiao and Qi Qi at school tomorrow. Haven't you watched the video? She tripped on her own. Don't pin it on me. Qi Qi already told me. She was just to explain right away. Why are you making such a big deal out of it? Father's voice was as authoritative as ever, but now all I could hear in it was mockery. Why do you like Jiang Qi so much? Do you believe everything Jiang Qi says? You really like Jiang Baiyue, don't you? So much, so that even after she died, you still brought Jiang Qi back to raise. Does my mom know about this? The breathing on the other end of the phone suddenly grew heavy. What do you want to do? Are you even going to investigate and threaten your own father? You beast. I hung up the phone before he could finish speaking. He likes the white moonlight and enjoys raising other people's children. Should we call him devoted or AS in the scorching heat of June? The sun blazed like fire. The 2-day college entrance examination has come to an end. During this time, Gaia would sometimes come to find me. Gulan, aren't you coming home yet? Mom misses you. Gulan, today is my birthday. Aren't you coming home? I stopped paying attention to him. No matter what reason he had for coming to me, I would never allow his family to stand in my way. On the day of the college entrance exam, score release, the homeroom teacher excitedly called my grandparents. City top scorer enough to get me into that university. My grandparents were overjoyed and wanted to host a thank you banquet for my teachers at the city's most famous hills hotel. It was the same place as Guo and Jiang Qi's. Guo also did well getting into a top-tier university, while Jiang Qi's results were slightly lower. But fortunately, she was studying art and could go abroad later. Just before the banquet started, I suddenly received a call from Guyao, his tone filled with urgency. Gulan, can you come out for a moment? I have something important to tell you. Know if you have something to say. Just say it. Please come out. I want to see you. Second sister. I don't know what kind of madness Guo is having. So I hung up the phone right away. After today, I can finally say goodbye to that family, and I feel an unprecedented sense of relief. Halfway through the banquet, my father brought Jiang Qi and Gua to meet my maternal grandfather. My mother followed behind, and when she saw me, her eyes were filled with tears, as if she truly missed me. It's a shame I don't believe it. Mom, Dad, let me introduce you. This is Jiang Qi, the child of my good friend. Guo also did quite well this time, scoring well enough for a first-year university. My father smiled politely at my maternal grandfather. He said he heard that my maternal grandfather was also hosting some kind of banquet at the hotel. So, he brought Jiang Qi and Guo along. Only now did I realize with a furrowed brow, what are you doing here? You come to your grandparents' place on the day of your own sister and brother's college celebration. What a disgraceful sight. I think you're the disgraceful one. Today is also Lan's thank you banquet for her teachers. Do you even know how well she scored? Is this how you and Chin act as parents? Grandfather angrily tapped his cane. Mom looked on with a face full of guilt while my dad remained indifferent. What good university could she possibly get into from Class D? Jiang Qi, wearing a pale yellow princess dress, stood behind him, smiling gracefully and elegantly towards this direction in her previous life after the college entrance exam. Jiang entered C's room one night and later became entangled with Xu Xiao after her father found out for some unknown reason. He gave her shares and property. This fake phoenix was eventually pampered by my father into a real princess, patting my grandfather's hand. I gracefully stepped onto the stage. Today is the celebration banquet for the top scholar, with teachers from the school and prominent families from the city all gathered here. Everyone knows that since my sophomore year of high school, I have lived with my grandfather and never returned home. Today is my thank you banquet for my teachers. But my parents are too busy celebrating their adopted daughter's achievements to remember their own daughter. Why is this the case? Smiling as I looked at my father's changed expression, I began to speak. Of course, it's because Jiang Kai's mother is my father's white moonlight. The room fell into silence. Even the Zhu family listened in surprise to the explosive news I had just revealed, ignoring my father, who was shouting from below for me to stop, and Guo, who seemed to have something to say. I projected all the information I had gathered over the years onto the screen. It turns out my dad had a girlfriend named Jiang Bihua before he got married. They broke up during the Gu family crisis, and he later married my mother to resolve the group's turmoil after the breakup. Jiang married a kind-hearted man who also cherished her deeply. However, the man later died in an accident, and she herself fell seriously ill. So, Jiang Bihua turned her gaze to her old flame Guang, planning a good path for her daughter. She sent her daughter to the orphanage where she had once stayed, then had the orphanage director call Gufang with a face identical to Jiang Bis. Guang took the bait. He personally brought Jiang Qi home and doted on her like a treasure, while driving his own biological daughter away. White moonlight, adopted daughter, drives away the biological daughter. The audience erupted in an uproar. What a formidable mother and daughter. How foolish the Gu family is. I saw the flashing lights below, the reporters looking excited, never expecting that the top scholar's family had such a big scandal. Jiang Qi has perfectly inherited her mother's cunning. She has been able to act and cry since childhood. I don't just want your room. I want your family. Your position. I wish I could have your life. Who wants to be a poor lowly orphan? I want to be the true eyes of the Gu family. Gulin, what are you anyway? Your parents don't want you. Gusi and Guo are on my side. Zhu Xiao has even called off the engagement with you. You're destined to be abandoned by everyone. So why are you still alive? Why don't you just die? The screen captured every trace of Jiang Qi's viciousness and cruelty. Seeing her own ugly face on the screen, Jiang Qi screamed and tried to rush forward to block it, but was pulled back by Guo. Before I could say anything, I saw my mother slap Jiang Qi across the face, tearing at her and screaming shrilly, "How has our family wronged you that you would do this to my daughter? You're trying to drive her to her death." My mother cried out in sorrow and panic, while Guo's eyes re-inhered so much right under my nose. It's my foolishness. Yes, but now crying is already too late. Mom, the banquet hall was in chaos, and I turned to follow the special personnel sent by the school to leave. At the door, Gua stopped me. Gulen, sister, where are you going? Looking at the national staff behind me, his voice trembled. The school I applied to is a special program at the National Defense University. Early admission. I'm going there now. Aren't you going home? He stared at me, his tone pleading. I looked up at the clear, cloudless sky. You forgot. In my second year of high school, I said I wouldn't go back. I haven't had to go back for a long time. Later, I heard that my parents had a falling out. Gria found me several times to pass on messages, saying they regretted treating me that way, saying they were also kept in the dark, saying that on the eve of the farewell banquet for the teacher, he and his mother had a terrifying dream together. In the dream, Jiang Qi truly took my place, and in the dream, Gulen died on a winter day at the age of 22. What's the use? That wasn't a dream. At 22, Gulen really did die on a winter night because she saw them as family. I was in the military, researching military equipment, and rarely had time off to go home. After publishing several key papers, she was even more strictly protected, unable to return home even once a year. Occasionally, when she went back for the new year, it was to her maternal grandparents' home to see me. Her daughter, my mother, and Gaia would return to my maternal grandparents' home every year for the new year. However, I usually only stayed briefly and rarely lingered. Inevitably disappointing that mother and son Gussie is not with Jiang Qi, especially after the teacher appreciation banquet. His mother sent him to another city to develop a new company and forbade him from returning. Where is Jiang Qi? She is with my dad. Similar plot. Jiang Qi lived in a panic after the teacher's banquet and finally got drunk one night to drown her sorrows and rolled into the study. She thought it was Gussie inside, and with a determined heart, she wanted to seduce him. But it turned out to be my father, looking at this face that resembled the white moonlight. He couldn't help but feel moved. My mother was so disgusted that she couldn't eat and was in the middle of a divorce lawsuit with Guang. The Gu family has once again stirred up a storm in the city with the adoptive father sleeping with his adoptive daughter, which is truly shocking. Jiang Qi is now presumably Gai's stepmother. It really goes to show how unpredictable life can be. The military's protection of me has become increasingly strict, and I only returned home once every few years. I attended Gua's wedding, and he has changed a lot from before, having become much more composed and mature. Sis, you're here. Gai looked at me, tears seeming to glisten in his eyes. We were close from the womb, and it's truly lamentable that we've come to this. But thankfully, we can still see each other a few times now. Mother patted my hand beside me. It's good to be able to see. It's good, having not returned home for several years. They also knew that if I didn't want to come back, they would definitely not see me. Now, this is already a very good outcome. I didn't see my father. After divorcing my mother, he married Jiang Qi. He has long been a laughingstock in the circle, and no one is willing to cooperate with the Gu family. Gussie took over the responsibility and gradually sidelined my father, not living the imagined life of a wealthy socialite and having to serve my father, that old man. Jiang Qi began to have other thoughts. My father beat her half to death. As people age, they become more sensitive and irritable. Jiang Qi put such a green hat on my dad, and now the two of them are like dogs biting each other, tormenting one another. Yet, they still haven't divorced. It's unclear who doesn't want to let go of whom. As for me, in recent years, I have become a top-level protected figure in the country. If all goes well, I will spend my life striving for the prosperity of my country. That is where I truly belong. After hearing the first story above, what are your thoughts? Feel free to share your opinions in the comments section. Next, there is another similar story. Let's continue to see. My husband is a renowned scientist. When asked about emotions in the interview, he said, "I don't think I'm a qualified partner. Under no circumstances would I prioritize romantic love. I only wish to spend my limited time pursuing boundless science." After the program aired, there was nothing but praise for his fearless pursuit of science. Yet I quietly tucked away my medical report. I have cancer. Terminal. Those days, he went to London to receive the award. Were my last days in this world. The last moment before consciousness faded was the blinding light of the surgical lamp. And when my spirit left my body, I could see the entire operating room. When I saw the image representing the heart rate on the ECG monitor beside the hospital bed had flatlined, I suddenly realized it seemed I had already died. For some reason, I had become a spirit, able to drift around freely. I was actually in a decent state this morning and managed to exchange a few words with Chandler. He had an international research presentation to attend and was flying out at noon today. So, I got up at 7 a.m. to make breakfast for him. Chandler appears so indifferent. Yet, he's surprisingly picky about food. The toast should be toasted just a little bit crispier, and the milk should be heated to about 80% warm. As my son puts it, "Mom, you've spoiled Dad's taste buds." I neither confirm nor deny this. After all, having taken meticulous care of him for 20 or 30 years, even the most troublesome things have become habits. Chandler, I heard that due to some air mass in the UK, the temperature is going to drop sharply. I brought an extra down vest for you. The chewing gum is in the left pocket of your backpack. You always get earaches on flights. Chewing one will help. Don't stay up too late at night. Has your heart been bothering you lately? Get some rest early. It's the polar continental air mass. My words were abruptly cut off, and as I raised my head dully, I met his clear, lucid eyes. The saying, "Time spares no beauty," doesn't quite apply to Chandler. His brow remains as strong as ever, and though he's nearing middle age, it's as if time has left no mark on him. Thus, the chill that has accompanied him since youth can still pierce straight through to the depths of my heart. He was correcting the inaccuracy in my first statement. Britain is affected by what air mass should be. Polar continental air mass. But I just wanted to show him my concern. So, I lowered my eyes. I straightened his tie for him. Got it. Take care on the road. Chandler, he brushed past me, thinking I had nothing to do this afternoon. Actually, that wasn't the case. He was heading across the Atlantic to attend an academic presentation. I had a meeting to attend. 2. It was my pre-surgery consultation. The doctor said the success rate of the surgery was only 20%. The doctor informed me that the stomach cancer wasn't detected in time and the cancer cells had already spread throughout my body. I sat in the hospital corridor all afternoon. The television mounted in the corner was playing today's interview. The program Chandler had been invited to a few days prior. The man with the cold gaze had no desire to waste time on anything beyond scientific research. Even when asked about his wife, he brushed past the topic briefly. "I'm a blockhead. I don't understand love and affection. A wife is more of a responsibility to me. Celebrating anniversaries, that's just formalism. I'd rather spend that time conducting a few more experiments." Sounds like something Chandler would say. Forget anniversaries. He doesn't even celebrate birthdays. When I was young, I would pester him, hoping that one day he would come to me holding a bouquet of vibrant roses. Yet I never once received a single rose. A mind capable of remembering countless data simply refused to retain those 4 digits of my birthday. Eventually, I would sit alone at the table preparing a bowl of longevity noodles and call it a day. Chandler is an iron tree that never blooms, and it took me over 20 years to finally admit this truth. So it's only in recent years that I've gradually started to feel something was wrong with me. Call it exhaustion or giving up. Whatever you like. Funny enough, he is him and I am me. I only now understand this truth that was laid plainly before me decades ago. I folded the medical report into a corner and put it in my pocket, only calling my son. Charles is close to me because Chandler doesn't like children, and his only son knows nothing about scientific research. Charles's voice choked up a bit after listening to my emotionless account. "Mom, you and Dad." I didn't tell him. I lowered my eyes, staring at the granite beneath my feet. I don't want to talk to him. He is him, and I am me. Besides, what would he do? even if he knew I was sick? Would he give up his round-the-clock obsession with research to take care of me? Charles, Mom doesn't know how much longer she can live. If one day Mom dies, don't even tell your father. I lowered my head to smooth out the hem of my clothes. Why bother Chandler with things he couldn't care less about? All right, Charles responded on the other end of the phone. Mom, to be honest, Dad never deserved you in the first place. He really didn't deserve someone as good as you. My spirit drifted through the hospital corridor, seeing the doctor walk out of the operating room and shake his head regretfully. Charles collapsed by my hospital bed crying. He had brought me to the hospital at noon and waited outside the operating room until evening. But Mom didn't fight hard enough. She couldn't open her eyes again. He wept so bitterly, and I was right beside him, frantic with worry. But he couldn't see me. I wanted so badly to hold him, to comfort him like I did when he was little, to tell him not to cry. Charles has worked very hard, although he didn't become a scientist as his father had hoped. His paintings are loved by many, and he will have an exhibition in Italy in the second half of the year. I sat beside him, looking up at the stars in the night sky, singing to him, just like when I used to comfort him as a child. He couldn't hear, but I felt that this way he would know his mother was by his side. I was suddenly carried away by a gust of wind to a place very, very far away. The sensory experience of the spirit after death is truly remarkable. I could simultaneously perceive what was happening in the hospital after my passing. At the same time, I found myself at the conference venue where Chandler was holding his meeting. That meeting of his was supposed to last 7 days. A man in a well-tailored suit easily became the center of attention in the room. Young, handsome, with a resume that could be described as unprecedented and unmatched. To be honest, Chandler has probably been the center of attention since he was a child. Back in college, the number of girls who had a crush on him was as countless as fish in a river. In those days when traditional values still held some sway, there were even girls who openly pursued him right to his dormitory building. Every time he looks at people with that icy, distant gaze, dressed in the most ordinary white shirt, textbooks tucked under his arm, he lowers his head to look at others with restrained detachment. I'm sorry, but I don't like you. Yet his words are exceptionally merciless. The so-called popularity that many men take pride in was nothing but pure annoyance to him. Back then, he had won national scholarships so frequently that it became routine. The teacher's mouth often uttered his name, and at that time I was one of the students who looked up to him, the most peripheral one. I only dared to steal a glimpse of the corner of his shirt when leaving the cafeteria. Chandler definitely didn't know that I had been secretly in love with him for 3 or 4 years before our blind date, and I would never have guessed that 3 years after graduation, the person my family arranged for me to meet on a blind date would be him. I won't have someone I like. This is what Chandler said to me when we first met. If I had to say what I like, I enjoy experiments, arithmetic, basically anything that doesn't involve people. He frowned slightly, yet even that couldn't diminish his striking good looks. He stated himself succinctly and clearly, "We're not talking about love. We're just making sure there's an offspring. Do you understand?" Actually, Chandler made it very clear at that time. It was me who thought I could accept it. It was me who wanted to be with him. I always thought there was plenty of time ahead, that one day his clear, candid gaze would linger on me. I always believed he would come to like me. Should I call it overestimating myself? To pin my day and night efforts on that so-called affection born of time. My spirit drifted to his side, watching him converse solemnly with the scholar across from him. The man was tall in stature, aloof yet elegant. Am I being rather foolish? I leaned against the wall with my hands in my pockets, looking at him. They say that highly intelligent people view ordinary folks the way ordinary folks view fools. Meanwhile, my remains were being loaded into the hearse. The academic conference hall buzzed with lively chatter. "Chandler, do you think I'm kind of silly?" Chandler took a photo of the London nightscape with his phone and sent it to me. Of course, I could never reply again. Charles really didn't tell his dad about my death. Even the obituary sent from my WeChat was blocked from Chandler. This is actually good. I bothered him too much while alive, afraid that even after death, I'd still trouble him, making him change his flight ticket. Besides, I don't think he wanted to see me for any so-called final meeting. The night view of London was quite beautiful, but for some reason, that day, he stared at his phone for a long time on the windy balcony. Only when I leaned over to look did I suddenly realize. In the past, I had always replied to his messages almost instantly. He used to take a few photos for me when he went abroad on business trips, and I would reply with memes I saved from Charles. A thumbs up or two thumbs up with the words "awesome" written on them. This time he waited for a long time, but I didn't reply. Professor Chandler, it's raining outside again. Hurry back. Don't catch a cold. A young female voice sounded behind him. It was his student. In academic circles, certain things were tacitly understood. The girl moved closer with familiarity, attempting to drape a coat over his shoulders, but he pushed her away. Fish and chips. Disgusting. Chandler sent me pictures of the restaurant. My remains were pushed into the cremation furnace. It's raining again. Chandler sent me a view from his hotel window. Relatives and friends attended my funeral ceremony. Tonight's results will be announced. Flying back tomorrow. Chandler stood on the podium, surrounded by cameras and microphones. I managed to understand a bit with my somewhat broken English. His achievement seems to have added a brilliant stroke to the progress of humanity. He stands under the spotlight in his field of expertise, never failing to shine and radiate as expected. I think this is why I've loved him for so many years. But it was me who loved him, not him loving me. In the drizzling rain of April, as the ashes were laid to rest beside a square tombstone, I finally understood this truth. That night, after the meeting ended, when Chandler called me for the third time without getting through, he changed his flight to the early hours of the morning on the plane. He kept frowning, his face colder than usual, but it makes sense. For so many years, I've been at his beck and call, and suddenly being unreachable must feel strange to him. Actually, I used to pick him up at the airport every time he returned to the country, and I would always arrive 1 or 2 hours early, waiting for him at the airport. These are also habits. One simply can't bear to let their beloved suffer. I always do my best to make sure he lives comfortably, but this time, he had to walk alone through the nearly empty airport terminal and then hail an overpriced taxi at 4:00 or 5:00 in the morning. When he got home at 6:00 in the morning, he knocked first, but no one answered. So he unlocked the door with his fingerprint and pushed it open. The house was empty. Everything was just as he left it, the sink spotless, the dining table bare. Only my frequently worn slippers were also placed at the entrance. He unbuttoned his coat, which he hadn't had time to change out of in his haste, and walked around the unlit house, circling again and again. Bedroom, balcony, bathroom. Finally, he pulled out the washing machine door. Finding nothing, he paused and took out his phone to call me. After a long wait, only a busy tone. He took a deep breath and swiped his thumb to another number in the list. Charles's. The relationship between the father and son had actually been tense even before Charles reached adulthood. Over the years, Charles only came home to see me, never intending to acknowledge his father. Chandler was even more like that, immersed in academics, essentially saying he shouldn't be expected to raise the child. He was absent during the most crucial stage of his son's growth, so his son never had a kind tone toward him. What do you want? Where's your mom? Both spoke in harsh tones, but Charles paused for a moment. Then came a strange laugh, indescribable in feeling, murmuring the words once more. Where's my mom? My mom's gone. Gone where? Chandler's frown deepened, the first light of dawn just falling between his brows. I heard my son's voice on the other end of the line, suddenly turning pale with realization. She didn't go anywhere. Mom passed away. Dead. A long silence stretched across both ends of the phone call. From my perspective, Chandler's knuckles turned white as he gripped the phone, still making crude jokes like some delinquent at your age. A lecturing tone. Didn't take it seriously. Apparently, the idea that I could die without even notifying him for the funeral wouldn't even cross Chandler's mind. Charles fell silent on the other end of the line, then let out a scoffing laugh as if finally letting go. Dad, I haven't made a single joke with you since 6th grade. Charles hung up the phone, and the beeping sound came from the mobile. I found it very strange. Chandler seemed frozen in place, standing there, still holding the phone. Slowly, he sat down on the sofa at home. Chandler was rigorous and serious in his academic work, but his personal life was the complete opposite. He was utterly carefree, so it's always been me cleaning up the house. His study is often piled with manuscripts, and he won't even let me touch them. I've been scolded by him more than once for things like this. Looking back now, I guess I was never really the right match for him to begin with. Perhaps what he needs is a female scientist who can explore the boundless academic universe with him, not some third-rate magazine editor who only knows how to wash sofa covers until they fade and can't even tell what a polar air mass is. Light slowly seeped into the room. I saw him tracing the lace of the sofa cover, that delicate fabric already gathering a thin layer of dust. He kept kneading it over and over. The door at home was opened. Chandler turned his head abruptly with such force that I feared he might twist his neck. As it turned out, standing outside the door was Charles, who jiggled the keys in his hand. Dad, perfect timing. You're here. Where did Mom keep the ID card and household register before? We have to go to the police station. Chandler's fingers, rubbing the lace edges, froze in place to cancel her household registration. In the cabinet below the TV, some of my enchanter's personal documents were stored. He's the type to just toss such things around carelessly, including medals from major awards. So, I always carefully put them away for him. He personally doesn't care about these things, but I always take delight in gently running my fingers over them. What's the point? He didn't understand why I was happy about his award. So, I just smiled and held his arm, because you're my husband. Of course, I'm happy when you win an award. When I was younger, I still had moments of clinging to him and acting spoiled. Later, as time passed, I'd become much more restrained. Chandler wouldn't let go of our marriage certificates. The photo on the marriage certificate didn't turn out well, either. After all, there wasn't even a hint of a smile on his lips, while I was grinning as if it were a grand wedding meant for me alone. Charles found my ID card and turned to see Chandler holding those two bright red booklets, staring blankly at nothing in particular. Dad, don't worry. Now that Mom's gone, your marital relationship with her is automatically dissolved. You're no longer her husband. Never will be again. Happy now. You're free to pursue romantic relationships with those young female students you mentor. The sarcasm in the tone was unmistakably sharp. Chandler would usually lose his temper when his son spoke to him like this, but this time he remained silent for a long while. In fact, he seemed to have been lost in thought for quite some time. He just slowly got up and then took the windbreaker coat hanging on the sofa. I'll go with you the whole way. Neither of them said a word. To be honest, I had actually thought about what Chandler's expression would be after I died. Probably just a casual, oh, or got it, before diving back into his grand research dedicated to humanity's benefit. He doesn't love me. This fact, I know. So my departure to him is likely just an interlude, neither too big nor too small, like a pebble tossed into a lake. He actually personally handled canceling my household registration. I don't even know whether to thank him for sentimentally remembering the past, watching my own household registration being canceled. This experience is quite unique. Charles handed in some documents, while Chandler sat waiting on a chair in the hall not far away. Even so, he stood out, his dark green coat like a solitary pine tree in the world, and I could always spot him in the crowd at a glance. I don't know what he was thinking. those dark eyes quietly reflecting the bustling crowd. And so Charles filled out my household registration cancellation form, and the clerk on the other side of the counter confirmed it. When it was handed back, a stamp had already been added to the household register. Cancelled. Chandler stared at those two words for a long time, long enough for Charles to snatch it back from his father's hands. I'll come back in a few days to collect my mother's belongings. Who said you could take them? Chandler, who hadn't spoken for a long time, sounded mucher. Am I not allowed to take it as her son? I'm her husband. You're nothing. After Charles spat out these words, both of them fell silent. Chandler was still standing there, but it felt as if all his strength had been drained in an instant. He closed his eyes for a moment and said slowly, "Your mother never told me she was sick." Yeah. Charles nodded, like telling you would do any good. Charles yanked away the household register, stamped with cancelled, leaving Chandler standing alone at the police station entrance. Truth is, I always knew Chandler was just passing through, trying to melt someone like him. Impossible. He is always rational, always aloof under the scorching sun. He turned and walked down the street, filled with the sound of cycas. I thought Chandler would go back to work on his unfinished projects, but from the moment he stepped into the entryway, he just stood there in a daze, just spacing out like standing in front of that handmade model I placed by the entrance. Standing there for over 30 minutes. I brought this model back from Melbourne, but could never get the last piece to fit right. He held me in his arms and called me silly, then effortlessly put it together in no time. For example, sitting on the sofa, staring at the aloe, Vera, we both raised until the sun had set. The aloe was a folk remedy I got from the Chinese medicine clinic near our door when my skin was always bad. I often stared at him enviously, poking him and asking why his skin could be so good. Most of the time he would dodge away in annoyance. Sometimes he would take my finger and give it a gentle bite. When night fell, he wouldn't turn on the lights, sitting alone in the dimly lit living room. I think in my absence he might still feel a bit unaccustomed. After all, I've taken care of him for so many years. And after all, Lisa will always leave a light on for Chandler to come home. At 1:00 in the morning, he finally made a move. After a cold shower, he burrowed under the covers, the night sky hanging high above. Chandler's routine was actually extremely regular. Sleeping past midnight was rare for him, yet he still seemed unable to drift off. He suddenly sat bolt upright. The moon hung high. He got out of bed and walked to the balcony. The small cucumber and pepper plants I had haggled for with the market vendor hadn't been watered for days. Wilting, he crouched down and squeezed a bit of water onto them from the nearby watering can. As he squeezed, his hand trembled slightly. Few lights remained in the residential area at night. Suddenly, a dog barked, its sound weaving into the desolate silence. I couldn't go anywhere these days. I could only drift around Chandler, who hadn't slept all night, surprisingly cleaned the house the next day, something unprecedented. The school, the company, and students all called him, but he barely responded. Each time he would just say, flatly, "I just lost my spouse after being with Chandler for over 20 years. I can't understand why he'd act like this after my death. He wouldn't shed a single tear for me after I'm gone. That much I've always known." He said he wouldn't invest emotions in anything outside his research. And that's exactly how it is. Honestly, I think he'd be the first among those close to me to move past the grief of my passing. He might not even feel sad that I'm gone. His indifference ran bone deep, almost carrying a cruel divinity. Yet now, it didn't seem like his usual reaction, like staring at the gift I brought him from my Morocco trip for an entire afternoon. The doorbell rang, and he shuffled slowly to answer it. Standing outside was James, our good friend from the same neighborhood and Chandler's closest confidant. "Chandler, just taking a walk here. Got you this pancake from the shop at the neighborhood entrance." Chandler's gaze shifted somewhat blankly to the pancake. It had to be said, James truly was his good friend. Chandler hadn't eaten for 2 days and a night, and James understood. Without me, Chandler wouldn't even know how to make a meal. The setting sun bled like crimson across the porch. Chandler turned slightly to usher him inside. After a long pause, he said softly, "Even you were invited to her funeral." That single sentence instantly silenced everyone nearby. "CHC, Chandler. It's all in the past. Let the dead rest in peace." James stayed with Chandler at his place for a while. Chandler, who was never much of a talker, grew even more silent, glancing down at his watch. Before he could say anything, Chandler already spoke up. "You'd better go now. This personality really leaves no face for others." Fortunately, James isn't the type to take things to heart. After saying goodbye at the door, just as he was about to leave, James suddenly leaned out as if hesitating for a long time before finally making up his mind to speak. The sunset quietly echoed behind him, his gaze seemingly surging with sorrow. "Lisa often told me she envied me when she was alive." What did she envy about me? She envied that I could do scientific research and understand those complex theories. She said, if only her mind worked as quickly, would Chandler be able to talk to her a few more words? Then the fading crimson of the sunset reflected in the pupils of the person before him, and Chandler froze in place. Chandler, to offer one sincere heart to another is not for that person to completely trampled to pieces. I leaned against the doorframe, watching Chandler still organizing our things. He had been at it all night, seemingly tireless when he came across a photo album and opened it. Inside were the photos I had compiled of the two of us. Actually, it's quite rare. Chandler, with that face that's been attracting admirers since childhood, doesn't like taking photos. Most of the time, it's me dragging him into the frame. And then there are the unavoidable shots like the one he's currently tracing with his fingertips. The time we took the cable car up Fragrant Hills. Back then, there weren't many safety measures. After he explained how the cable car worked, I was terrified and clung tightly to his arm, only to be met with his icy. I regret explaining this glare. I remember there's a story behind this photo. That was probably the only time I ever fought with him, threatening to divorce him. Chandler was always busy, especially when he was younger, with virtually no free time to spare. I really had to pester him for a long time, doing a lot of convincing before he finally agreed to set aside 3 or 4 days to go on a trip with me. The date was set, the tickets were bought, and I had been looking forward to it for days before we were supposed to leave. Then, just 1 day before departure, he suddenly had a group meeting and couldn't go no matter what. I was indeed quite angry, but not to the point of hysteria. What truly pushed me over the edge was he went to attend a group meeting, also out of town, and went alone with a female student. The female student comes from a well-connected family. While I usually take care of Chandler, she always dresses up flashily and deliberately positions herself near him. Every time I came to see Chandler, she would seize the opportunity to bombard him with professional questions, dragging on for over half an hour each time. I sat there holding the box of lukewarm takeout, waiting dryly. I asked him if we could cancel the group meeting, but he said it wasn't possible. "You go by yourself," he said indifferently to me while gathering his papers. He said those words in the morning, and by evening, the divorce papers were placed on his desk. He finally looked up at me from the pile of newspaper data. Back then, very few people got divorced, but at that moment, I truly wanted to leave, utterly devastated, my emotions inexplicably tangled. It might have been because I was already pregnant with Charles then, my hormones in turmoil. Only the younger version of me could have done such a venting act. But now, I actually think it would have been better if we had really separated back then. That night, Chandler packed his luggage and stood in front of my room. He was never much of a talker. So, even now, I don't know how he managed to cancel that unavoidable group meeting he had to attend. Anyway, the next day, he set off on the journey with me, and that photo was taken. I held onto his arm, pressing close, while he remained expressionless, his handsome face maintaining its cool detachment. after we returned. His career went through a rough patch, and I might bear just a tiny bit of responsibility for that. It seems like we never really had many happy memories together. It's quite a miracle that we could even get married and have children. He flipped over the photo paper. On the back was a sentence I had written. I'm sorry, Chandler. I never knew how to make you happy. He suddenly clenched the photograph tightly in his hand. The paper cut into his flesh, leaving a bloody mark. Chandler found the wine we made last year in the storage room. The lid sealed with my note. Do not open until Chandler's 3rd year July, when I added that line. I already knew I had cancer. I wrote it because I understood he wouldn't remember these things. While tidying up his study, he uncovered the note pressed beneath the glass desktop. A time will come to ride the wind and cleave the waves. I'll set my cloud-white sail and cross the sea which raves. I wrote it for him when his project hit a snag, and the team was running around in circles. The only support I could offer was 3 meals a day, water at the perfect temperature in the early hours, and these quietly tucked words of encouragement beneath his books. The lotus seed and red bean soup I made still sits quietly in the fridge. He dislikes bitter flavors and refused to eat it unless the lotus hearts were removed. I coaxed him with a smile. All right. Next time I'll remove the lotus seed hearts before making it for you. Okay, but in truth, I already knew then that there wouldn't be a next time for me to make it for him. Now he sits at the dining table, gently pulling out the cork I had sealed, and slowly finishes that box of lotus seed and red bean paste with the wine that hadn't yet expired. Then, 15 minutes later, he went to the bathroom and threw up violently. Well, that makes sense. That thing had been sitting in the fridge for over half a month. Chandler didn't drink much. He once said alcohol only messed with his thinking, but he still finished that bottle. He definitely had a low tolerance. Clutching the bottle so tightly it made me wonder if I'd misremembered the date, as if the alcohol had fully fermented. He ran to the bathroom to throw up again. A loud noise erupted in the bathroom as he collapsed head first into the sink. Water gurgled and poured over his crimson, tipped ears. Slowly, he raised his head, staring at the figure in the mirror. Then suddenly, without warning, he swung his fist and smashed it into the mirror. Who knew the great scientist had such strength in his hands? The mirror cracked, blood trickling down the fissure. He stared at the distorted reflection, utterly defeated. I rarely got to see him like this, so emotionally explosive. No matter how much I provoked him in the past, he never showed any reaction, whether it was anger or expressions of love. The funny thing is, after decades of marriage, it turns out he never even properly expressed his love to me. The blood on his hands had stopped flowing, and he emerged from the bathroom, dragging a chair woodenly before heading to the wardrobe in the bedroom. He wobbled as he climbed onto the chair. The top shelf of the wardrobe held our seasonal bedding. I've always been sensitive to the cold, unable to bear even a slight chill. When I was young, I would act coquettishly toward him, opening my arms to him as soon as I came in from the cold winter outside. Cold, hug me. He refused outright by a blanket. Later, I bought a blanket and never needed his embrace again. Yes, when did I start losing that warmth? I can't remember. That blanket is still hidden in the cupboard. I wrapped myself in it every winter. So, this was what he was looking for. He tugged at a corner, then lost his balance. He tumbled down with the tightly gripped blanket. It made a loud noise, but he seemed unresponsive. After a long pause, he just clutched my blanket tightly, as if it was the only thing left in his hands. He seemed unable to stand up properly, so slowly, pulling the blanket, he shrank into a corner of the sofa, wrapping himself in the blanket. Perhaps his drunken frenzy had run its course. He hadn't slept for 3 days and had vomited everything he ate. Closing his eyes briefly, someone who shouldn't feel cold was now wrapping the blanket so tightly around himself that even borders on greed. My things. Would he covet them? I never thought of it that way. He struggled several times, grabbed his phone and dialed a number. It was James Chandler. Listen to me. On the other end of the line, James seemed to have anticipated this. Lisa is gone, and that's that. Dead people can't come back to life. Don't do anything rash. You, James. The words were cut off in the silent, rustling night. He stared up at the ceiling that would never light up again. He asked the person on the other end of the phone, James, does she hate me now? After I died. He didn't shed a single tear. But why now? Holding on to my belongings. Crying like this. Chandler and Charles got into a fight over who gets to keep my belongings. He was beaten and sent to the hospital. Several close friends and relatives arrived with Charles being held back as he shouted at Chandler, what right do you have to keep my mother's belongings? Have you ever cared for me even once? Since I was a child, have you ever fulfilled your responsibilities as a father just because you don't want to be disturbed just because you're a great scientist? Yes, you contribute to humanity. How idealistic you are. How great you are. So what? I don't matter. Mom didn't matter. And now Mom is gone. How dare you take Mom's things from me again? Chandler was pinned down by James and ultimately couldn't get a word out. He raised his hand to wipe the blood from the corner of his mouth. In just a few days, he had changed so much, losing weight rapidly. The summer wind swirled through the hospital corridor as his son raged behind him. James patted him on the shoulder. All right, Chandler, who can you blame for coming to this point? A rather neutral statement. Chandler coughed twice. I never thought. So faint it was extinguished in the gentle melody of the summer breeze. The corridor of the summer ward stretched endlessly, and he surely didn't know that I was floating right in front of him. He clutched his chest tightly, as if he couldn't understand why it hurt so much there. I never thought I'd lose her. The one in pain became Chandler, and the one who wanted liberation became me. I don't know what happens to people after they die, nor do I know how long I'll keep drifting. There's nothing I can do but watch Chandler day after day. This man who played such a significant, yet effortless role in my life for decades after death. I never want to see him again. Chandler tidied up both the house and himself. He shaved the beard he hadn't touched in days and styled his hair again. Time has always favored him, so light, filtering into the bathroom, fell on his profile. Still striking despite the weariness. Handsome to the point of being in a league of his own. He bought a plane ticket and flew alone to Italy to secretly visit Charles's exhibition. It was probably the first time he had ever seen Charles's paintings. Despite Charles being all grown up now, when Charles was very young, he would cry over everything. He had his own projects to deal with and found it annoying. So, he left Charles to me and Grandma to take care of. When Charles grew a bit older and started school, his father was disappointed that his son hadn't inherited any of his mathematical talent. He completely stopped paying attention to Charles, refusing to explain even a single problem to him, despite being a professor himself. So now, standing before that enormous floor-to-ceiling painting, what exactly was he thinking as he gazed upward? He remained alone in the exhibition hall until sunset, then left as quietly as if he'd never been there at all. He also visited my grave when it came to me. He'd always been a man of few words. So he and the photo on my tombstone stared at each other from day to night. When he left, he reached out to touch my photo, but withdrew his hand in the end. The photo was chosen by Charles, where I smiled gently forever. Back home, he took a shower and changed into the clothes I had forced him to buy during the new year. Slowly, he took out the sleeping pills from the nightstand. These days, he couldn't sleep at all without sleeping pills, so he asked the doctor to prescribe some. He stared at the sleeping pill box in his hand for a long time in the empty and silent room, as if he could no longer find traces of the person from the past. He tossed the sleeping pills into his backpack. Just before closing the door to his home, he suddenly, without warning, cast a deep glance in my direction, then walked away without looking back. Chandler knew of my existence. 3 days later, I suddenly realized this fact because 3 days ago, Chandler began writing some words in his notebook. Lisa, I don't know if you're by my side. You might be, or you might not. But one thing I'm certain of is, if that experimental direction wasn't wrong, You would definitely be able to see this sentence. What did he mean by that? I blinked my eyes. At this moment, Chandler boarded the green train, the rumbling machine ceaselessly advancing toward the snow-covered country. The destination on the ticket was Russia. The green shadow swayed past the window like a breeze. As he put pen to paper, I gradually realized something deeply unsettling. If we assume that souls exist after death, which is my current state, then logically everyone should become a soul after they die. But why do I only see myself? Why do I exist? Why do I alone exist? What exactly am I? If I became a ghost, why can't I see other ghosts? Could it be that am I the only ghost in this world? Once this question arises, I realize how much I had taken everything before for granted. The fact that I have consciousness after death is an extremely bizarre thing in itself. I suddenly raised my head and looked at the man meticulously writing characters in his notebook. It's no coincidence. Nothing is a coincidence. The fact that I still have consciousness after death is by no means some supernatural tale or clever theory. It's because of Chandler, this person who is in contact with the world's most cutting-edge technology, standing at the pinnacle of academia. What was done to my body without my knowledge? The universe follows the law of causality. The law of entropy tells us that the universe moves from order to disorder, and time only flows forward. Flowers bloom only to wither, and the dead cannot return to life. The train rumbled along as Chandler leaned against the carriage. His hand kept writing in the notebook. How ridiculous. Lisa, I used to scoff at the theory of cosmic regression. I thought it was just a delusion of those lunatics who wanted to return to the past. Now I place all my hopes on the feasibility of that once hypothetical theory. The law of conservation of cosmic information, a fringe theory suggesting that no information in the universe truly vanishes. If every moment of consciousness is a fragment of information, then the existence of you might be recorded within some cosmic structure. Despite my deep skepticism about cosmic regression theories, I still took advantage of your hospitalization 20 years ago when you were unconscious from acute appendicitis to implant what we call a consciousness anchor, a novel conceptual mechanism. In 2002, this technology was not yet mature, and there was only one chance. After that, it was shelved due to its enormous cost and unverifiability. It was just a newly constructed theoretical model. I only confirmed that it would not cause any side effects on the subjects. I didn't even know if it would succeed. After all, no one knows what the world after death is truly like. We cannot observe it, nor can we perceive it. Perhaps everything about you has already vanished with the decay of the body. Or perhaps you are watching me write these very words. Anyway, I now realize that back then I had already acted out of selfishness. I didn't want you to leave me, so I made you the vessel for consciousness anchoring. I stood there frozen, feeling a chill run down my spine. That's why I retained consciousness after death, and why I've been bound to his side all this time. Lisa, tell me. The white snowfield covered the window panes. His handwriting came to a halt on the last page. Can people really return to the past? The researchers at the Russian laboratory seemed quite welcoming to Chandler's arrival. It would be more accurate to say that almost every laboratory in the world welcomes Chandler, hidden within a snow field. This building is said to gather the most cutting-edge technological forces in the world today. They spare no effort to tackle that proposition, a problem humanity has vainly attempted to solve for hundreds, even thousands of years, whether traveling to the future or returning to the past. I watched Chandler set down his luggage, throwing himself into research without a moment's pause. Watching the stack of papers in front of Chandler grow thicker and thicker, he always forgets to eat, and his daily sleep time is pitifully short. He seems to have gone mad. Or perhaps he's just obsessed with verifying the answer to that problem. During his free time, every day, he would write me messages in that notebook. I don't understand space-time leaps or quantum entanglement, but if I exist here, then perhaps there's some probability their experiment was successful, And during these days, watching Chandler become like this, time wrestles by in its endless cycle, fleeting as a white steed's shadow, yet I find I neither grow weary nor bored. A consciousness entity no longer harbors such emotions. I sat on the bookshelf nearby, staring at him in thought. Have I hated him all along? Truthfully, not anymore. Emotions were out until there's nothing left to be fair. Chandler wasn't particularly good or bad. In the end, we were just an ordinary couple, perhaps not loving each other so sweetly. That's all there is to it. I gave him my body and soul, my everything. It's a shame that by the time he turned around, I was already gone, and when I realized how emotionally affected he would be by my departure, I actually feel nothing at all now. Chandler is truly formidable. He can wear down even the most passionate heart, thinking he wouldn't care at all. But in the end, he miscalculated. Yet, I no longer care. I sat there watching it all unfold like scenes from a play where the ending means nothing to me. Chandler no longer matters to me. As for the years wasted on Chandler, I have no regrets. Human choices are not meant for regret. How I wish Chandler could understand this truth and let me go, instead of persisting with this mad experiment as he is now. His theory involves dividing people into extremely tiny fragments, which is somewhat obscure and difficult to comprehend. I can only do my best to understand it. Those minuscule fragments can no longer be called individuals. They are atoms 10 to the 28th power protons. What's remarkable is that each proton in its quantum state can precisely mark its structural function. This formed a stream of protons, which is my current state of consciousness. Only this proton stream meets the conditions for traveling through a wormhole in a helicopath at the speed of light. This experiment succeeded in Chandler's third year in Russia. He inserted his thumb into the machine. It operated, producing a smooth cross-section without generating additional blood, bones, or nerves. He successfully transformed into the same kind of substance as me, one that cannot be observed by humans. The nerve stimulation from Chandler's severed finger must have truly affected him. He clutched his finger in pain and knelt on the ground. Yet he laughed. Over the years, he had grown increasingly neurotic. James came to visit him, bringing along the sesame cakes from the neighborhood downstairs, the ones that had crossed the snowy plains. Staring at the man whose hair had grown long enough to be tied up, James just let out a sigh. Chandler without Lisa. There's no one left to keep you in check anymore. I don't think my presence brings Chandler anything. All I can do is offer him a cup of hot tea when he's tired. Is this cup of tea important? If James could answer my question, he would definitely grab my shoulders and nod, saying, "It's important." The experiment entered its second phase during Moscow's springtime, having already achieved the conditions for artificially creating proton streams. All that remained was to construct a wormhole capable of traversing space-time. I don't understand physics, but wormholes were definitely the most frequently mentioned term in the science fiction stories of my magazine. This alone speaks volumes about both the difficulty and the absurdity of the endeavor. He wants to artificially create a wormhole and define this action with a new term. It's called quantum self-cleavage. I watched as he wrote in his notebook under high machine pressure. Low temperature and a high-frequency electromagnetic field locally perturbed the stable vacuum. Use a guiding device to force the vacuum state into nonlinear fluctuations. A spatial point is extracted from its original causal chain, thereby cleaving into two coherent entrances. It doesn't tunnel through space, but reconfigures the local space's topological structure. I can pronounce Chinese characters, but I can't quite understand them when they're combined. In short, based on his proposed quantum fluctuation theory, a vacuum is not completely empty, but rather involves the spontaneous generation and annihilation of virtual particles within extremely short time intervals. Energy fluctuations appear in space under certain specific conditions. These minute fluctuations can be artificially amplified or manipulated to form a wormhole entrance that tears open the fabric of space. Chandler's experiments were going even worse than before, and his supporters dwindled over the years. He had ceased activity in the field of applied physics, even attracting criticism that he had descended into charlatan research, deluding himself with the impossible dream of time reversal. They said he had gone mad, experimenting on himself, and would one day die on that terrifying machine. In fact, the prerequisite for time travel in his theory is death. After all, being split into protons, a person would already be reduced to something finer than dust. For this very reason, no one was willing to be his test subject. He would become the first test subject of the colossal machine he created, perhaps the last one as well. On a sunny morning in Moscow, he faced the final stage of the experiment. The few remaining followers were tasked with observing the entire experiment from outside a glass room. He lay inside a somewhat eerie silver, vortex-shaped box made of titanium. The machine started, and no one knew whether it would slice him into countless invisible fragments, or is it really capable of taking him through time? Perhaps both. The buzzing sound of operation filled my ears. Regardless of his condition, I soon had a reaction. I felt pulled by something, a kind of sensation. A vortex I spun with its movement, yet never felt dizzy. I couldn't perceive, yet knew that self was a fluid. Countless things exploded around me, darted past, abundant. I was being led, yet it felt like rushing forward, unable to perceive the flow of time, as if billions of years roared past my ears, yet also like a fleeting instant. I fell into an abyss, endlessly plummeting. Did Chandler's experiment succeed? Perhaps, but I have no time for people's cheers. No time to consider how great he is or what future changes will come. I see that I cannot see those whirlpools. I hear that I cannot hear those whispers until my vision was filled with light. I opened my eyes. The spring breeze blew gently. Light streamed through the library window as the page of the poetry journal in my hand turned to the next. Someone is by my side, tugging at my sleeve. Lisa. Today it's Senior Chandler as the teaching assistant. If we're late, we might not get seats. The crowd rushes past us in a hurry. The library, though lacking in complete resources and showing slight wear on its infrastructure, often gathers diligent youths striving for new ideals. The soft melody of morning songs pulls my thoughts back to reality. Lisa, what's wrong? Haven't you been longing to see Chandler? Hurry up, or we really won't get a spot if we're any later. Chandler, the Senior Chandler. Hearing this name, I suddenly snapped back to reality. It was like white noise, gentle yet impossible to ignore. But this time, I realized something very intuitively upon hearing this name. My first reaction was to avoid it. I don't love Chandler anymore for so many years. I've clearly thought of him for so long. Stay by his side for so long. Long enough to build a family. Long enough to become each other's daily support. Even a part of each other's family. In every day and night when my heart was swayed by him, I found myself lost in thought. Suddenly, I realized one day that I no longer felt anything for him. So, there really came a day when I felt nothing for him anymore. I gently pushed away the girl's hand that was holding mine. He smiled to her. Go ahead. I want to read a little longer. Give me at least one more chance to start over. I don't want Chandler. There was a commotion at the door. Not too big, not too small, but just enough to make me look up from the Vintage Digest. Someone looked hurried. When normal people hurry to find someone, they are usually glanced at and then ignored by others. But that was Chandler, 20-year-old Chandler, whose white shirt perfectly accentuated his waist, with black tousled hair gently swaying in the breeze as he walked. His features were sharp, yet, compared to his adult self, he still carried the youthful edge of a sword freshly unshaved. His lips pressed together, exuding an air of aloofness that kept strangers at bay. In that unadorned era, he walked as if he had stepped straight out of a modern fashion magazine, drawing all eyes irresistibly toward him. I hid my face behind a book, hoping to go unnoticed. Unfortunately, he walked straight towards me. He grabbed my wrist and tried to kiss me. I raised my hand and slapped him. These two things probably happened within 2 seconds. It caused a small but noticeable gasp from the onlookers. His face was slapped to the side by me. The stray hair in front of his forehead covered his dark eyes, and I couldn't see his expression. All I knew was that his hand, gripping my wrist, still hadn't let go. "Lisa," he called out to me. I watched him. "Let go. Will you?" A cold, firm tone. I never thought I'd use it on Chandler one day. We're definitely the center of attention like this, anyway. And I don't mind laying everything out in the open. Chandler, if you keep pulling me like this, the whole school will hear about you harassing a female classmate. He let go. "Sorry. Actually, if you really think about it, it's been so long since I last spoke to Chandler after my death." He subconsciously pressed together the index finger and thumb that had touched me. "Gently twist. Lisa, we've gone back to the past. Can we start everything over again?" I looked at him deeply, very deeply, but some things just can't be helped. You don't realize you're moved until emotions take hold. And when you think of turning back, you find there's no way back. People call him regret. Chandler is too proud. Human relationships always start beautifully, only to breed hatred through friction. Chandler was the opposite. He didn't care about me at first, but in the end, he cared deeply. "But I don't like you anymore, Chandler." The setting sun swayed gently as I walked past him, enunciating each word clearly. I never imagined that one day my role with Chandler would be reversed, but that's just how it turned out. In the past, I would diligently research new recipes just to get him to eat one more bite. Now he's no less devoted. I suddenly stopped in my tracks, and the man following me halted as well. I watched as he pulled out a bouquet of dazzlingly fresh roses from behind him. He was too eye-catching, more so than a bouquet of roses. A fair-skinned young man with downcast eyes and a bouquet of vibrant roses. It was truly a feast for the eyes. I watched it without the slightest emotional fluctuation, even felt a bit annoyed. "Chandler, look at yourself standing on the stairs." I looked down at him from above. "Don't you think this doesn't even seem like you anymore after being rejected by me so many times? Aren't you tired of it yet? Why must you cling to me in this second life? There are clearly so many other things you could be doing. Why bother? I don't care. I can't do it. I can give up everything. But days without you." He suddenly stopped speaking. His dark eyes gazed deeply at me. "I don't want to stay for even a second. Lisa, I would die without you." His eyes are truly beautiful, like a piece of obsidian, deep and captivating. Suddenly, I remembered how I used to long every day for his gaze, clear as water, to fall upon me. I long for him to whisper sweet nothings to me. But why is it that now I don't want to see or hear any of it at all? The wind cheers and the petals are scattered in its wake, but I don't love you anymore. This is the reason. The reason his eyes suddenly reened when I told him these past few days. Whenever I return to the dorm, I become the center of conversation. Holding my book, I let my roommates chatter around me. "Lisa, you become a big celebrity. Quick, tell us what's really going on between you and Chandler. How did you get involved with him?" "Reject Chandler." My roommate nudged my shoulder. "This is so cool." Maybe at that time, in everyone's perception of Chandler, the probability of him actively pursuing someone was even lower than someone proving the Riemann hypothesis. But compared to these, I've already returned to the past. Chandler really doesn't matter anymore. I closed the book and jumped off the bed. I waved at them. "Let's not talk about that for now. Are you interested in starting a business?" "Starting a business." I nodded and flipped open the magazine in my hands to show them the books we're reading now are all paper-based. Right. Whether it's serialized novels or submissions. But what if I told you that in the near future, web-based novel formats will rapidly rise in popularity? Would you believe me? I want to create a website for serializing novels. The terms website and online novels are rarely mentioned in this day and age. The visions of the future we conjured in our youth were always brimming with madness, and the unknown holds its own peculiar lingering allure. Especially now that I hold the key in my hand. I can be certain that in this lifetime, everything for me can start anew. So, compared to entangled love affairs, indeed, taking the path never traveled before is far more appealing. The starlight shines brilliantly in my eyes. That night, the lights in the girls' dormitory stayed on until dawn. Everything started anew for me. This lifetime, there would be no Chandler, extra Chandler's perspective. Early summer has just begun, and these days it's been raining heavily without cease. Chandler stood across from the school building, looking from his vantage point. The faintly glowing windows likely hosted some celebratory event, yet the carefully wrapped gift in his hand. He held on to it for a long time, but there was no longer any reason to give it away. He knew that even if he did, it would end up in the trash bin beside him. Today was Lisa's birthday. He disrupted the timeline and took her back to their first birthday together in the past. The 108th day, Lisa rejected him. To be honest, did he know he would end up like this? He did. Every time his mind starts working, he realizes how wrong his actions were. But why can some emotions be hidden so deeply? Why can some people walk so far without looking back? He returned to the past, but the past gave him the harshest punishment. In fact, many times he wouldn't have ended up like this if he had just taken one step forward. If only I had seriously celebrated her birthday with her back then. If only I had smiled at her more when she cheerfully tilted her head to talk to me. If only I could have held her when she was afraid of the cold and winter. If that were the case, maybe she wouldn't have hated him so much. Wouldn't it mean that even in the last moment of her life, she wouldn't have wanted to tell him it was that simple? He could have had her. How arrogant he was when he had so many chances to set things right. Why did he throw them all away? Why was it ignored? The heart began to ache again, and he pressed his hand against it. So regretful. That endless feeling was tormenting his heart. A feeling of desperately wanting to escape time enveloped him. I was truly wrong. Can you come back? Please, I beg you. But in that downpour, he was like a wandering ghost. He could only raise his head to gaze at the window, faintly glowing with warm light. Just like before, every birthday of theirs, every anniversary, he passed by indifferently, thinking himself sober. He deemed it mere formalism. Formalism. If only he could spend one more second with her now, he'd embrace any formality. The evening wind, entwined with rain, crept into his collar. He gazed longingly at the window that would never again light up for him. At least it's still okay. He's gone back to the past. At least he can still look at her. Not just a photo, some memories, a series of cold nightmares. The second hand ticks past the marks. 3, 2, 1. He silently counted, softly wishing her the happy birthday. He never spoke aloud. It's dark. After the lights went out, she was gone, too. He was awakened by a loud noise. It took a long time to recover. He only realized that the tremendous noise was the sound of himself falling onto the floor. His bones ached, leaving him powerless to stand up. That's just how it is when you get old. All sorts of ailments start to appear. Had another dream. He told himself. Could the dream last a little longer? He told himself again. He simply lay on the ground, wanting to sleep, but couldn't. He stared at the ceiling as the setting sun slowly traced the mottled marks until someone knocked on the door. He couldn't get up at all, but he knew the person knocking had a key. A few minutes later, the door was opened. James walked in, tapping his cane, searching for him in the room. Finally, he was found lying on the ground. Chandler, Dad. James threw aside his cane to look at him, but he opened his eyes. Why are you lying here? James, despite his own advanced age, had to come and support him. He listened as his own hoarse voice spilled out from his throat. I have to go find Lisa. She went out to buy groceries today. It's raining. I need to bring her home. Lisa's gone. Chandler. James knew he was at it again and reminded him with practiced patience. You're not taking the medication the doctor prescribed for you again, are you? She's not gone. But he could no longer hear James speaking, muttering to himself. I found a way to travel back in time. I found her. She just turned into a consciousness and stayed by my side. Then I took her back to the past. We can start over. She's not dead. I found her. I found her. He grew more and more agitated as he spoke, gesticulating wildly, restrained by James Chandler. I'm telling you, it's the year 2049. Lisa has been gone for over 20 years. You didn't travel back in time. What are you thinking? Modern physics generally considers time as merely information. The past never truly existed. We can never travel through time. You can never go back to the past. He gripped the old man's shoulders across from him. How could you not understand? Chandler suddenly went limp as if drained of strength. Staring at him with a pair of clouded eyes, Chandler shook his head, saying, No, I've clearly found a way to go back to the past. Yeah, dreaming is your method of time travel. Chandler, you're truly pathetic. It's been over 30 years, and you still can't move on. If that's the case, why didn't you spend those 20-some years properly with her? I regret it. Chandler just kept repeating this sentence. Yeah, but you can't go back, whether you're the most renowned scientist or not. James placed the brought pancakes on his desk. Just dropped by to see you while taking a walk. Seriously, shouldn't you hire a caregiver to look after you? You're not getting any younger. Chandler. The door closed, and Chandler sat in the rocking chair, staring at the bowl of pancakes. Yet his thoughts drifted with the shifting summer light. He seems to be able to see again, seeing the summer woven by cicadas' songs from over a decade ago. Lisa rushed into the house, excitedly, shaking the bag in her hand. Chandler, there's a new pancake stall open downstairs in our neighborhood. Try it. Is it good? He looked at her, crying hysterically. The blanket she once draped over herself was now frayed everywhere from his use. Yet he couldn't bear to throw it away. Now even his crying sounds unpleasant. Why cry at all? He just thought of it. That blind date many years ago. He could have refused just because he saw her, just because it was her, just because in the vast sea of people she was the only one. It made him raise his eyes,